Yeah, all right, friends, we are firing on all cylinders. Thank you for being here. This, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that it's been a very difficult week, correct? With yesterday and the school shooting and the Buffalo massacre. So if we could just pause a moment of silence before we begin, that would be, I think, really good for us. So let's just take a moment of silence. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here once again. My name is Nick Brock, and I'm the Executive Director for Vote Common Good West Michigan. And this event is called May Love Overcome and Justice Roll Down. At Vote Common Good West Michigan, we are a nonprofit working to, number one, re-examine, and number two, reimagine the status quo religious and political narratives throughout Kent County and Ottawa County. And we aim to do this by bringing together local faith leaders, elected officials, community organizers, and artists who are willing to say yes to this little thing we call the common good. So to that end, and in partnership with Vote Common Good, who is here this evening, we have put together short talks to provoke, provide a spoken word piece to feel, some songs to move, and a dramatic performance to inspire. Thank you again for being here. 2 years ago, a man was lynched. 2 years ago today, a man was lynched. As an act of racial terrorism, Mr. George Perry Floyd Jr. was illegally executed on a Minneapolis street corner by members of the Minneapolis Police Department. On the evening of May 25th, George Floyd was handcuffed and pinned face down by a group of police officers. And over the course of ensuing actions, Mr. Floyd, who had stopped resisting arrest and had come to be in physical distress, was continually subjected to excessive use of force by being kept in a prolonged prone position while also having a knee pressed upon his neck, leveraging the full weight of an officer. Not to mention another officer with his knees upon Floyd's back. All the while, Floyd uttered in desperation, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe." Floyd uttered that he couldn't breathe more than 20 times. He also cried out for his dead mother and children. And with his final breaths, Mr. Floyd gasped, "They'll kill me. They'll kill me." The officers did indeed kill him that Monday evening. The video went viral thereafter, and the nation was in protest. And after witnessing a national tragedy and its related events, I personally was in need of a Sunday morning. Or so I thought. More than 60 years ago, the prophetic words and voice of Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of another national tragedy, saying, and I quote, "I think it is one of the tragedies of our nation, one of the shameful tragedies, that 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is one of the most segregated hours, if not the most segregated hours in Christian America." I have always agreed with this assessment. My naivety with regard to the deeper indictment of this assessment, however, stemming from my 20-plus years of attending white megachurches located in white suburbs that way and led by white leadership, was about to be exposed come Sunday morning after George Floyd. In short, my church spent approximately 5 minutes on the matter and determined to plod through with its regular scheduled sermon series. It became more apparent that George Floyd was an afterthought, and that Dr. King proved to be more than right. So I left that church and determined that if anything adjacent to what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota occurred in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I was going to be ready and willing, because what I've come to understand is that not only are utterances of the phrase, "I can't breathe," a growing and permanent part of our cultural lexicon, but this cry is also attached to a deeper narrative. You see, for it was a naked, brutalized, dehumanized, and non-white Jesus that was lynched upon a tree, uttering the words, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe." And with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last breath. You see, friends, the way Jesus died at the hands of first century Rome is as relevant and subversive for us today in 21st century America. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? I don't know about you, friends, but after 20 plus years of Sunday sermons, I needed to reroute my attention elsewhere, and Monday seemed like a pretty good place to start. So on Monday, April 4th of 2022, Patrick LYOYA, a 26-year-old Congolese refugee living in Grand Rapids, was shot at point-blank range in the back of the head by a Grand Rapids police officer, Christopher Shirt, after a misdemeanor traffic stop for an improper license plate and ensuing scuffle over the officer's taser. Now, since that time, a strong and bold collective of black leaders and activists have proactively been in pursuit of expedient justice, full transparency, and exacting accountability on behalf of the grieving LYOYA family. And conversely, during that time, many white leaders from institutions similar to what I have already previously mentioned have displayed collective apathy and a laissez-faire approach. It is time for those leaders and communities to wake up, stand up, and speak up in the name of love and justice for Patrick LYOYA and the grieving LYOYA family. To demand the same in this manner with regard to the Grand Rapids Police Department. Number one, we suggest that the Grand Rapids Police Department conduct a follow-up study to further examine data from the 2017 Lambert Consulting study that showed racial disparities during traffic stops and searches for black and brown drivers compared to their white counterparts. Number two, we're suggesting reform for officer safety policies and incentives to discourage single officer apprehensions where applicable to encourage officer safety and hence subject safety. And number three, we are suggesting that the Grand Rapids Police for de-escalation training for officers. You can wake up, stand up, and speak up in the name of love and justice for Patrick LYOYA and his family in this regard as well, with the Kent County Prosecutor, Chris Becker. We ask that he recuse himself from the investigation due to potential conflicts of interest. By doing so, his office can avoid mere appearances of impropriety, and this should be a best practice with officer-involved shootings. Lastly, friends, it is imperative that those who involve themselves in public meetings do so in a way that encourages civil discourse. May leaders lead with a heart of non-violence steeped in love in order to steer their communities away from the delusional power of hate. And may love overcome and justice roll down.
My name is Dan Dietrich. I'm with Vote Common Good. And I want to share a song with you written by a good friend of mine, Brandon Pfeiffer. And it's a song that looks at the broken world and asks, where is the justice? Where is the peace? Where's the healing that we need? But it doesn't stop there. It's also an invitation and a realization that there won't be justice and peace and healing until all of us get off the sidelines and become active participants in seeking justice. So, listen to these words and see if you can find yourself in them. Where is the justice we need? Oh, where is the justice we all want to see? When I walked in the street, I began to see the justice we need is the justice that needs me. Oh, where is the healing? The healing we need. Oh, where is the healing we all want to see? I turn on my TV, I see so much dis-ease. The healing that needs me. Oh, where is the peace that we need? Oh, where is the peace that we all want to see? I phoned an old friend, said sorry for the grief. The peace that we need is the peace that needs me. Oh, and the healing we need is the healing needs me. And I know that the justice we need is the justice that needs me.
Martin Luther King said that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. It's also been proven that we only use about 10% of our brain power. 10%, could you imagine the possibilities? If with our eyes we could see injustice and act with love, mercy, and grace. If we can hear the hearts of others, if we can just listen hard enough, if we can feel our brothers and sisters' pain, if we can taste what real freedom looks like, what it looks like when we speak out in truth, and if we can smell success when we all work together. So I've been here almost 7 years in Grand Rapids. I come here from Illinois, and I've seen what's been happening in Grand Rapids, and it just breaks my heart. It's one of the reasons that I decided to run for commissioner in Kentwood. I call Grand Rapids beautifully racist. Why do I call it beautifully racist? You see all these interracial couples, you see all these colors getting along. In Chicago, you can see the segregation. Here, people are together and the racism still exists. And we need to change it. We think that because I'm sitting next to my Asian or white or black brother or sisters that it looks good. But how does it really feel? They're still suffering. When we look at leadership, it does not reflect the community that we serve. Something has to change. We need some lament. We need some repentance. We need some real grace, some real mercy, and some real love. I ran because I understood that it is time for change, and it is time for us to have leaders and people within the community who are not afraid to speak up.
That's right.
I'm not afraid. It don't look like you all are afraid either. Amen. So every skill, every gift, everything that God has provided me with, I use it as an opportunity to speak out. So today, I wrote a poem, and this poem is dedicated to Patrick LYOYA, I always say his name wrong, and the family, because this is the gift that God gave me to use in this particular time. There are more, but we're going to let these words sing, amen? Amen. The poem is called Son. Son, can you hear your mother crying from way across the shore? Son, can you hear her anguished heartache, a sound like none before? Brother, where did your mind drift before your father's call? Son, did you think of home or future or have any thoughts at all? Father, you see your people coming from each and every way. Do you see your ancestors praising, waiting for this day? Can you feel the pressure rising, aching for release? Father, I hear a war cry sounding, screaming words of peace. Don't you know a new day's coming? Carried by the winds, when sorrow heads start bowing, repenting, breaking in lament. No, you never saw it coming, but our Father knew who would lead the new day coming and why he called on you. Never was your life in vain, because it means so much. Some thought no one would notice, but we've all been touched. Son, can you hear your mother crying? Her tears dried by the wind. But oh, can't she see your Savior coming, so no tears will come again? Felicani, can you see your children's pain or hear your father's deep inside? You answered. Your head was turned toward a new day to usher in the light. It's time for change. It's time for us to stop talking about it and being about it.
Amen.
I'm coming from somewhere else, and I have a child who asked me the other day at 11 years old, she said, Mommy, do you think that they'll come and shoot up my private school? So we not only have a problem with officers and executions and injustice, we also have a problem with mass shootings and guns getting in the hands of children and mental health issues, and we have a lot of things going on inside of our country, and it's time for change.
Amen.
Now I fuss about the entire community, but a couple of years ago I led a march for George Floyd, and God told me to begin talking to women especially white women. Why? Why? Because like us mothers whose son died like George Floyd, you have a responsibility too. You have a power too to speak to your husbands and your children before they walk out of the house and talk to them about love and mercy and justice for all. It's bigger than sitting inside of a church. What are you preaching inside of your homes? We gotta start taking this stuff seriously, because the onus is on all of us, especially women, because we nurture and we birth. These kids are coming from us, and we have a responsibility to stand up, to speak out, to use 100% of those senses, to see, to smell, to touch, to feel, to deliver. Amen? Amen.
My name is Keith Manis, and I'm an ordained pastor, and I left the church of my upbringing so I could be here to speak at times like this. Because I believe the cause of some large percentage of the church and its attachment to religious Trumpism has associated itself with something distinctly anti-Jesus.
Amen.
There's so much on our minds and hearts tonight. I don't know about you, but I can't get to sleep tonight, sometimes at night, and I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, and I don't know how to pray sometimes. And my wife and I are weary and overwhelmed and want to do so many things, and you can only do so much, but you came here tonight, and I came here tonight to try to keep a promise. It's a promise too late to keep for Patrick. I never met him. Hardly deserved to wear the shirt. And it's a promise too late to keep for everybody who died in Buffalo. Maybe there's one man I can keep the promise for. He's a friend of my pastor, and Doug Van Doren is here too. He's our pastor together. And African-American pastor, and he sent an email to his pastor friends. And so our pastor read this Sunday morning in church. I'll read you just part of it. Pastor wrote this right after Buffalo. And he said, I'll tell you, I feel hunted. I feel hunted like members of my own denomination want me to be silent or dead. I feel like folks who laid their hands on me at my ordination would fold their hands if their friends chose to attack me. I see a Trump sticker and translate, they hate me. And I see the American flag on a truck and it feels like a weapon. After Saturday in Buffalo, I'm paranoid, distracted, and obsessed, wondering who it is that wants to kill me. So I'm here, when I hear anguish and trauma like that I haven't had to live in my own life, but when I hear it, when I feel it, maybe I can keep the promise for him. Because I'm a guy who used to go to Promise Keepers. And you talked about talking to women. That was a thing that talked to men. And if you don't know what that was about, you're too young to know what that was about. You kind of imagine 40,000 religious evangelical men in a stadium, or 70,000 religious evangelical men in Pontiac Silverdome, singing rock songs for God and listening to sermons and repenting of their sins and trying to take on a new way of being in the world and in their families. That's what I really thought it was all about. You think what you want about Promise Keeper. I look back now and I think, what the heck was I doing? But at the time, it was just rock songs for God and changing our lives for Jesus, and that's what it was about. And although I was at the Million Man March in Washington, D.C., 1.4 million religious evangelical men on the mall in Washington, D.C., singing rock songs for God and changing their lives and loving each other. And I thought, hey, this is great, but I wonder what those guys are doing over there. Those guys marching around the Washington Monument with those ram's horns, those Old Testament war trumpets. I wonder what they're doing over there. But I didn't really think about that. It was just about rock songs and about loving people and loving That was all I thought it was really. It was in many ways such a beautiful thing. Think what you want about Promise Keepers, but there was one tour that Promise Keepers took through the country 26 years ago. Makes me kind of a geezer, doesn't it? But 26 years ago, they went on the racial reconciliation tour through this country. And stadiums full of religious evangelical men gathered together, and the coach said to us, Coach McCartney, he says, now, you guys are here, and we are going to tackle the beast. We are going to tackle racism together. You guys are going to lead it. You're going to promise tonight to lead a change in this nation about prejudice and about racism. And we said, yes, Coach. We sang rock songs for God, and we heard great sermons. And we had Asian American and African American and Native American and then Americans like me hugging each other and confessing to each other and weeping over each other. And then when it was all done, then Coach McCartney stood up and he says, now you white men. And we all, what? And he said, you white men. So now you're responsible. I want you to promise tonight that when you hear something racist or hear something that is said that is wrong and unjust, I want you to have the courage to stand up and to confront it and to speak against it. We said, yes, Coach, we will. He said, if you see something that is unjust or that is wrong or that is racially motivated, I want you to have the courage to stand up and speak to it and put your life on the line, because these are now your brothers. And you will stand with them and you will defend them, and you are the ones to do it. You promise? We said, yes, we promise. Do you promise? Yes, we promise, Coach. Tens of thousands of men from this whole religious swath of West Michigan, white religious men, were at those gatherings. And we said, yes, Coach. I don't know, where the hell are you now? Where did you go? Where did you go? Sitting on your hands, or get your hands over your mouth. Did you see nothing? We didn't hear nothing. Oh, it's complicated. I don't know where you went, but I know where some of your sons wound up. Because I talked to one about a year ago. He's a deacon in this nice white evangelical church. And he lives in a nice white suburban neighborhood in a big old house. And all his neighbors go to their conservative white evangelical churches too. And kids all go to Sunday school, and all the parents are youth leaders and elders and deacons in their churches. And they all have a great time. They get together once or twice a month, and they all cook out, and they have drinks, and have a lovely time. But this deacon says to me, so now he's in his late 30s, and he's like, hey, I don't know, though, it's starting to bother me a little bit. I said, what's starting to bother you? And he said, well, we have this lesbian that lives in our neighborhood, and all our neighbors are really, really tormenting her. And all these guys send naked pictures of women to each other all week long. And when we're at these things, we got our burgers and our beers and everything, and they're telling all these racist jokes using the N-word. Everybody laughs, they think that's hilarious. We said, it's really starting to kind of bother me a little bit. Is it? Is it starting to bother you a little bit? A little bit? Is it starting to bother you? Yeah, we're all just a little bit bothered, but we're here tonight because we're a big time bothered. And because there's something that's got to change. I don't know what you all thought you were doing, what my generation of guys thought they were doing at those rallies and at those Promise Keepers gathering. I don't know what happened to the promises they made, but I know that something didn't get through to your kids. Whatever you said you would be as a dad, something you did not communicate to your kids, that we are trying to communicate now. We're here today to reclaim the promise. Here's what this pastor said at the end of his email. Here's what I need. I need my white allies and freedom fighters to publicly proclaim things like, I renounce white replacement theory. Anybody here renounce that?
Yeah.
We renounce that. Or to say things like, I renounce white supremacy. Anybody here renounce that?
Renounce it.
I renounce that. I renounce the killing of black people in every form. Anybody here want to renounce that? I want to renounce that. He said, I don't want you to be quiet about it or put it in a little note. I need you to be loud about it, loud enough for your children and your families and your neighborhoods to hear it. Put it in newspapers, get a billboard, put signatures down, hold a press conference, whatever it takes, because that's the only way I can find solace in knowing that somebody's out there not trying to kill me. That's not too big a promise to keep, to say, I am with you. We are together. We suffer together. We stand together. We're trying to do something better together to keep the promise. May God help us. May God help us and give us the true nature and love of Jesus in the world and love for one another. Can't solve everything. I'm troubled. I'm anxious. I weep half the time, but God help us as we seek justice and peace, and dignity, and love for one another. God bless you for being here today, keeping the promise. Amen.
Everyone. So I prepared a few things that I wanted to say, and I made sure to write them down because I did not want to omit or miss anything, because this is very important and we need to get it right. It's a time now for change, and we need to understand everything that's before us so we know what to do. So my name is GAYLE HARVEY. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a small business owner in the state of Michigan. I would like to start by saying I was saddened of the news this young man, Patrick LYOYA, had been killed. I would also like to thank you all for taking the time out of your days and your schedule to be here to receive information that is so important. There are so many sides when it comes to controversy. What I offer to you today regarding this tragedy are feelings from my standpoint as a human being. I am a woman of color. I am a mother, a sister, a cousin. I'm an aunt, and I also have many leadership roles. But right now, what I would like for you to understand is that while I do not have sons, I do have a nephew. He's a recent graduate of Kentwood Public Schools. He's about 6'2". He's solid. He has dreads. He has tats. And to the average person looking on, he appears to be a grown man, which to some, this may be intimidating. But to me, when I see him, he's just a big kid, fresh out of high school, attempting to navigate his way through this world. He will make mistakes and hopefully learn from them. But we all did, and some of us still do. People say, if you just do as you're told, follow directions, you will come out of this okay. But we as people of color know that this is not always true and it's not always the case. There are many examples of young women and young men who complied and were killed anyway. Some of them face down, handcuffed behind their back, shot at point blank range. No one is perfect, yes. There may even be a rap sheet for the people, for these victims. But that should not mean you have to be killed just because of your past transgressions.
Right.
I want to put a human face on this tragedy. Yes, my face is of color, but that should not make me any less of a person. I feel nervous for young men of color who are behind the wheels of their vehicles, especially at night. These killings are of culture, behavior that should be reviewed, and there should be changes accordingly. We do absolutely need the police. I'm gonna say that again. We do absolutely need the police. I am just hoping that there can be something put in place so all police can start seeing people of color as complete human beings.
Amen.
We have words that are overlooked. We say things that are not listened to. Please listen to our words when we are speaking. We deserve no less respect when it comes to these traffic stops and violations. In ending, I just want to say that I have known WOMACK for years, since he was so high. He used to run around this city as a little kid in this little beige trench coat, in and out of the city trying to find his niche. I do know that above anything else, he cares for this community. I know he will always fight for what's right in whatever position he assumes. He'll always do the right thing. So please find it in yourselves to ask the difficult questions. Have the difficult conversations. It is time to right the wrongs of the past and pave the way for change in our futures. I thank you so much for allowing me your attention while I said this. Thank you.
My name is Reverend LAURIE CRELLY. I'm a new minister and a new resident to Grand Rapids. I and my wife and daughter moved here just a year ago. I am the pastor at East Congregational Church, and our church has always been known, it's been there for over 125 years. It sits on the border between Easttown, Ottawa Hills, and Martin Luther King Park. And if you know that intersection, if you know where Alexander and Giddings intersect, you know that that is three very different communities that intersect at that corner. And when I was called to this congregation a year ago, they said, we need a community organizer. We need somebody who's skilled in doing this kind of work and reaching out into our community and helping us bridge the divides around us. But something you don't know about me is that I am a native Minnesotan, born and raised in Minneapolis, childhood friend of Doug Pagitt. And he and I and other organizations in Minneapolis have been doing community organizing for decades and finding ways to bridge the divides in our community. And what Common Good works on and does is that, finding the bridge, building the bridges that divide us, tearing down the walls and building up the bridges. And when I saw what happened 2 years ago with George Floyd, I wept. I was broken. I was living in southern Illinois, just outside of St. Louis. And I was down there when Mike Brown happened, and now here it's happening in my hometown. Watching my hometown burn, and the streets being filled, the highways being filled with thousands and thousands of people. And I wanted to be back home. And now I've moved here. God's called me here. And once again, we're seeing our hometown, this town, struggle over the same issues. And the same need for the churches and the communities of faith and the people that are running the city to come together and to find common ground, to build bridges, tear down the walls, and fill in the gap. Just as when George Floyd was killed, and now today, 2 years later, we're just a few weeks away from Pentecost. When George Floyd died, I couldn't help but think about the parallels between Pentecost and what we need now. John 20 talks about how John's description of Pentecost was that Jesus came to the disciples just a few days after he had died and breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit, so that you might be my witnesses." We watched Daniela as a witness of what was happening to George Floyd. We watched cameras being held by a friend and by a body cam being a witness to what was going on with Patrick. And we know that sometimes there are no witnesses. But a witness has two roles. One is to watch and to see and to document in their minds what is going on, but also to proclaim, to speak up, to stand up, and to speak the truth so that justice might happen. And that is what we are called to do as Christians, as people of faith, as citizens of this community that love this community. We are called to speak truth to what we witness and to stand in the gap, to fill the void so that we might join hands, so that we might be brought together in community. As a new member of this community, I don't have good connections. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm not here so much as a leader, maybe as an inspiration by what God is speaking to my heart, but I'm here to take a lead from you, especially my black brothers and sisters here, because you guys know the fight much better than I do. And I need to listen and see your step forward and follow in behind. And I need to be able to put my life between you and the danger that you face. That's what we're called to do. So I'm grateful that I'm here because of a connection, a childhood connection. But I'm here to make new friends. I'm here to make new connections. And I'm here to help find our voices together. I thank you.
Hi, Laurie, I'm Ruth.
Hi,
I'm
Ruth.
your new friend.
All right.
Right, we're all friends here, aren't we?
Yes.
I'm Reverend Ruth Bell Olson. It's an honor and privilege to be here. I'm the mother of a black son. He's 13. Do you know anything about 13-year-old boys? Uh-huh. Frontal lobe not developed. He does stupid things, right? He's thoughtless. He doesn't always have good judgment. He desperately wants a splatterball gun. Do you know what those are? Kind of between a Nerf gun and an airsoft gun. All his white friends have them. He can't have a splatterball gun. He wants to ride his bike after dark, like his white friends do. Nope. He can't ride his bike after dark. A couple of years, he's gonna get his driver's license. Right?
Lord have mercy.
God, more ways than one, right? So he might get his license and drive a car. The idea that my son might act without proper judgment and get executed for it just sends a chill down my spine. This is not okay, this is injustice, this is wrong. I'm the mother of a black son. I'm also the pastor of a white police officer. When I spoke to this congregant a few weeks ago about being a white police officer, he told me all kinds of stories of what it's like to walk in his shoes, what it's like to wear that uniform, what it's like to be the one that people demand he put his life at risk when they're scared. And he told me in May of 2020, his daughter came home and started calling him names, calling him a racist, homophobic murderer. And with great emotion, he said to me, I'm not these things. He is not these things. And to think that this kind man who serves our city gets called those names by his own daughter sends another chill down my spine. When I told this officer that I don't know where to begin, what do we do with this? I said, do I take my son to your precinct and the next precinct and every police department in the Grand Rapids area? Do I introduce him? Do I put a sign up with his name? This is my son. Do my husband and I and my other children, do we say this is our family? And he said, no, he said, the logistics of that. And he kind of went, eh. And then there was this beautiful pause. And he said, you know what I want to do? He said, my next shift, I want to come to your house. And I want to meet your son. And I want to show him my car. And I want him to know I'm there for him. And I want to know him. Isn't that beautiful? So when I think of where do we start, where do we even begin? Can we begin with one person meeting another person? Because when we say all those people are like that, and all those people are like that, what have we done? We've dehumanized each other, haven't we? And when we dehumanize, we aren't able to see the God in each other. We're image bearers. We are divine beings. And when we say we're all like this and all those people, we miss the God in each other. So perhaps, if we pursue justice, each of us, one conversation, one meeting, bridging those divides, as we've said already tonight, maybe that's where we'll see a glimpse of that beloved community. Maybe that's where we birth hope. And I'll tell you tonight, that gives me a chill down my spine in the good way. Amen.
Thank you for that. It's easy for me and maybe for you to look at the news and just spiral into despair and hopelessness. But one thing I've learned is that joy and hope are acts of resistance. And so I'm going to sing this song by a guy named William Matthews. And it's about this quote from Dr. King that no one is free until we're all free. There's a world at war, caught in suffering, silent casualties. Oh God, grant us peace. In these sleepless nights, I can hardly breathe. Despite brutality, I know that we'll be free. I know that we'll be free. Let the light and keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love gives us to see, we'll all be free. Yeah. Let the light and keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love gives us to see, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. In these desperate times, love will hold us here. Love will hold our hands, teach us to have no fear. So we lay our head down to wash their feet, and when we see our brothers, oh, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love is us to see, we'll all be free. Yeah. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love is us to see, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. And then there's a little part for the choir. I don't know if you're willing to join the choir tonight, but it's real simple. You just echo me, I'll say free, and you say free. We'll all be free. It goes like this. We'll be free, 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 free. We'll all be free. We'll be free, 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 free. We'll all be free. Oh, we'll be free, free, free. We'll all be free. Yes, we'll be free, free. We'll all be free. Yeah. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love does us to see, we'll all be free. Yeah. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love does us to see, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Oh, we'll all be free. Thank you, Sister Wendy.
Hey, good evening. My name is Doug Pagitt, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I drove here today for this event. Some people, I've run into them at the gas station or saw Keith. He said, wow, it's a long way to drive. Yeah, it's a long way to drive. Tired of hearing stories about white men driving hundreds of miles to shoot and kill people in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in Buffalo, New York, in El Paso, Texas. Yeah, people get in their cars sometimes and they drive places. And it's an honor to drive here and to talk about Patrick, to be reminded about the murder of George. These are causes, they're causes that matter, but they're people. So people are going to do something. Just over 2 years ago, when George Floyd was murdered in the town that Laurie and I are from, I still live there, and that Cup Foods that he was murdered in front of, I've been in that place. That neighborhood's the neighborhood that my son and daughter live 2 blocks down the street. It's where our church is, that part of town. I've been a pastor there, was a pastor there for a long time, been out of that role for a while. And I was sitting on my patio and we had a family get together. Remember, it was Memorial Day. Right? It was that Monday of Memorial Day weekend. So we had a bunch of people over when the video came out. And we watched the video. And we had people in our yard, and I said to my wife, I wonder if I should go down there. I wonder if I should go. Maybe you felt the same thing, or maybe you feel the same thing about just being here tonight. Maybe in your schedule you said to yourself or to somebody in your family, I don't know, there's stuff going on. You think I should go to that get-together over at that thing? I don't know what's going to happen. That's what I felt like sitting in my backyard on a patio with a bunch of people over. Shelley said, yes, you should go. So I do protesting stuff. I've been arrested for it. Like I do, direct action protest stuff. So I've got gear for that, right? I've got a red shirt that says love on the front. Sometimes when I'm gonna get real bossy about it, I put on a clerical collar and I go down. So I got my gear out and I went down there. And I was scared. But I'll tell you, I wasn't scared of the police. George Floyd and I are similar sizes, we walk the same neighborhoods. I know how the police treat people like me. And yeah, we need the police. And we need the police to stop killing people.
Amen.
But they don't tend to kill people like me at the same rate. Now they do. In 2021, they killed 1,025 people in this country. In 2020, they killed 1,056 people in this country. 38 per million if you're a black man in this country, you're killed by the police. So they do kill people, but I wasn't afraid because of the police. I was afraid because I wasn't sure how someone who looks and sounds like me could be in that space. It's hard, I'm telling you. Now these are no excuses, and Keith, thank you for your good words, and I'm an evangelical pastor, I hang around evangelical people, and I know that they're afraid and they don't know what to do. That's no excuse for not doing it, but it's real. So when I said to my wife, do you think I should go? And she said yes, that helped me go. When I got down there and found some other people, that helped me go back the next day. When we got shot by rubber bullets and sprayed with mace by the police, that helped me to come back the next day. We were down sweeping up the streets, that helped the next day. The thing that helps people go is that people say, yes, you should go. Now you strike me as the kind of people who don't need as many people to tell you, yes, you should go, because you've been sitting here for an hour already, right? You're the kind of people that show up. But I can assure you there are other people who don't know if they should go. So anytime you can help them to go. So why do little meetings with 40 people on, some Wednesday night, do they make any difference? Is it Wednesday today? I don't even know what day it is. Does it change anything? Yes, it does. It does, because when people go, then you tell somebody about it. The reason we live stream this stuff is because we want you to tell people about it. Take some pictures, send it on, and tell people about it. Do you remember Darnella Frazier? You might not remember that name. She's a 17-year-old girl that was walking down Chicago Avenue. She sees the police doing something. She pulls out her phone. She didn't know George Floyd died. Maybe you remember that. She says, I don't even know what happened. She puts her phone away. She goes home. And she reaches out to a community organizer because she was in a group on Facebook. Justice for Jamel. Because Jamel was killed by the Minneapolis police 2 years ago, and she was in that Facebook group. So she reached out to the leader of the Facebook group and said, I saw something today. I think a man might have died at the hands of the police. Well, that organizer reached out to the Minneapolis police because she has direct contact with the police chief and asked Chief Ardal, did something happen today? And he said, let me look into it, and got back to her and said, no, I saw the report. It was a death by natural causes. Oh. Remember? Death by natural causes. That was the report. Yeah. Here's Darnella. She's just saying to herself, well, I don't know, what do I do? So she said to the organizer, I shot a video. Do you want to see it? Yes, I want to see it. We have these impulses, and we're not always sure what to do with them. So then we ask someone, should I go? Should I drive? Do you want to see the video? Should I call? We don't always know. Look, the morality and the immorality is clear. What we should do about it often isn't very clear at all. You want to see the video? Change the world. How much more possible could it have been to not pull the phone out, to not get in the Facebook group that's 2 years old, to not reach out to someone, for someone not to respond on Memorial Day weekend to a Facebook message, for someone not to answer a call. So what can we do? well, you do something. My friend said her grandma used to tell her, when you live in times like we live in, which is all the times, when you live in times like we live in, you don't do nothing, you do something.
Amen.
So you ask somebody, do you think I should? And do you want to come? And yeah, you invite people and they say no, or they don't want to go, or they don't think you fit, or you're saying that same thing about yourself. Maybe I'm not the right person. Maybe it's not me. Maybe I shouldn't go. That is as normal as getting up. I just so much appreciate you being here. It's no heroic effort to drive 9 hours to a meeting. Right? That's no... People do that stuff all the time. People drive to meetings. I stayed in the Hampton Inn last night, full of people driving to meetings. It's what we do in this country. What's impressive is when you leave your home to go across town, to sit with some other people, and be reminded that yes, this was a good thing to do. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're going to hear from some more people. I'm really excited to hear from some, and it just means a lot that you're willing to be here and that you said yes. And when other people ask you, should I go, would you please tell them yes? Amen.
Thank you. I'm Commissioner Robert S. WOMACK, and I usually start my speaking with always giving all the glory to the Most High. I'm a Christian, but I know there's all kind of religious people and even some non-believers, but for us that believe that there is a higher power, let's give glory to the higher power. I want to start today by saying, picking up where he left off, it's just great to know that he was a part of the protesters that brought this to our knowledge from the George Floyd incident. Today is the anniversary. The White House, President Joe Biden, they did request the LYOYA family be in Washington, D.C. today to represent Patrick LYOYA as he signed the George Floyd bill. So let's get it going. Also from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Tamika Palmer, who is the mother of Breonna Taylor. She was also in Washington, D.C. So let's give it up for the Breonna Taylor family. In City Hall, I'm getting a lot of blowback as people ask, why did you bring national leaders to Grand Rapids? We know how to handle our situation. Why did you do that? It was time for Grand Rapids to see itself through a national lens. Right. To understand that we live here where we have what they call West Michigan nice. But even worse, they sprinkle Grand Rapids nice on it. So it's extra sweet. But when you bite in the cookie crumbles. It crumbles when we ask people to stand up against racism. It crumbles when we ask people to be transparent. Some of you may have watched the news last night. Finally, it's been admitted that the city and the GRPD sent video to News Center 8, and somewhere in the police department, they on purpose took 30 seconds out. The young man, James Smith, whose car was being followed by GRPD, they didn't pull him over. He didn't know they were following him. They let him park, go in the house. They called for backup, about 20 more officers. And when he came out later, he just went to visit his dad. He had saw no police lights. He's had no sirens. He walks out and people rush him from all sides. A gun goes off. Now, what we're told is that the officer was running and the gun went off. Dame immediately said the officers were pointing guns at him. They said, no, that's not what happened. They were running and the gun went off. The 30 seconds, what happened in News Center 8, they didn't give up on it. There's a reporter that still went and asked the prosecutor, FOIA'd the information from Kent County prosecutor that she already FOIA'd from the city of Grand Rapids and the GRPD. In the Kent County prosecutor's version, those 30 seconds were not missing. And you see the officer running at him just like this, with the gun, when the gun goes off. So when they say trust the process, trust the investigation, never question it. The only person I don't question is the Most High. I even question myself. I promised Nick Brock I'm gonna be here at 6:30. I got here at 6:31. You know, we're human. We make mistakes. I'm not here to villainize the police. But while we were growing, working to make sure that this rainbow coalition that God has made of us people of all different colors to realize we're bigger than a color. We're people. We're human beings. We're brothers and sisters. What are we fighting about? A color. We've been working on this in America for a long time. But I'm just realizing the boys in blue haven't been working on it. It's almost like when they put on that blue uniform, they become someone different. It's like when they put on the blue uniform, and not to blame all the police. Because like someone said, we need the police. I want young people to grow up and want to be the police so we can police ourselves with the resources of the government, which is our own tax dollars. I want them to grow up to be police. But what happens is when other people see someone in the blue uniform, our modern day version of, I guess, Spider-Man, Batman, or better yet, the Riddler sometimes, they don't believe they can do any wrong. So before we can have a constructive conversation, before we can have a real dialogue to start healing, and that can only start when sometimes all the time we should admit when we're wrong. We should admit if a person did something wrong. Let's say you did something that could legally take you to court and you get out. It reminds me of my social training. I grew up with my mom, dad, they loved me. Well, I guess dad loved me in a strange way because he took off, but they gave me enough love that I thought I knew what was going on in life. And I would interact with other children, as teenagers, more people, and sometimes I would say things at a party or do things that would make people want to fight me after the party. Make some people cry. And I didn't see nothing wrong, but I like to cook too. So I learned to cook. If you put too much salt in it, that was too much. Too much onion, everybody crying at the table, but they love my meatloaf. Too much. If your fruit you're bearing is making people cry, there's something wrong. I had to realize I'm not perfect. I have to change. What I learned in the house was not enough for me to be productive in communication with the other people my age around me. I still had some learning to go. But we had a police claiming the divine. And I can't blame all the police, but we have a lot of people, especially in City Hall. Let's go back to the LYOYA family, Washington, D.C., George Floyd. President Biden signs the George Floyd bill today. In it says, no excessive force unless absolutely necessary. Now, in order to make local municipalities sign a board, he had to say, we're going to have to require it for some of our federal funds. Why does it take after Breonna Taylor being killed? Why does it take after Patrick LYOYA being killed, after George Floyd being killed, after Mike Brown being killed? Why does it take a federal law for the city of Grand Rapids to finally understand we need excessive force policy? Our blood wasn't enough? Children being scared of the police wasn't enough from the graphic videos they're watching? They're not like us no more. They got phones. Can you imagine how traumatized they must be? I was traumatized when I met Big Word in real life and my mom took him and he was so tall. Touch him, Robert. How do you like Oscar the Grouch more than you like Big Bird? He's tall. Can you imagine being young with a telephone? Seeing what these kids are doing and cities have not addressed it? I'm not here to beat up on the city of Grand Rapids. Maybe they're waiting for the city of Detroit, and maybe Detroit waiting for the city of Cincinnati, and Cincinnati waiting for the city of Beverly Hills. But they're not doing it. Here in Buffalo, you got 10 people shot, killed and murdered. Now in my neighborhood, we just heard it, we running. I don't wear a suit every day now. I'm hanging out in the hood where it's all good, enjoying myself. We here, so we run into the TV, and we see them walking with this guy, all comfortable, who just shot 10 people. We see him patting them down. And I'm not making this up, kind of like this. We see him going in his pocket. And we see him just come. Do you think we get arrested like that?
No.
I just seen a man of color in Grand Rapids get tackled on a motorcycle and body slammed and beat up. I saw another man going down the street with a bicycle and get slammed, and then when they got him on the ground, they could have handcuffed him, but GRPD kept pushing his face into the ground. That's how I've been arrested before too. On my back, getting beat because I wouldn't put my face in the mud, and have my whole neighborhood clap like, he won't put his face in the mud. Look at Robert, they kicking him. They're on his back and he's still there. So when I see Patrick LYOYA doing this, they call this fighting. While they're beating me, they're saying, stop resisting. Now when they got you, I didn't even run. It's like, for some reason, I'm like, you about to arrest me. Get on the ground. Okay, I'm on the ground. What are you doing? Now you're putting my face? No. I don't want my face in the cement. I like my face, even if you don't. If two people love my face, that's good enough for me and my mom. So I know I feel to be in Patrick LYOYA's shoes. 19 children, 2 teachers killed in a Texas elementary school alum. Let's take a moment of silence for all of their parents. God bless me to be on the Kent County Commission, and I was given the task that day to motion our first mental health court, which we now have in Kent County. Here in America, how can an 18-year-old buy 375 bullets and it doesn't raise an alarm in no one's head? Can you think what you were buying at 18? You give me $300, I went and got a skateboard. You know, a good time, some roller skates. Kids in my family, they don't even have $300 and $400, but they done made me buy them $800 and $500 iPhones is what they want. If I thought they wanted to buy 300 bullets, where do we wake up and understand that we need some type of gun safety laws to ensure that everyone is safe in America? Patrick LYOYA, the police union has responded by saying that people are calling Patrick LYOYA, the officer whose name I won't say, they're saying that people are calling the officer a racist and a monster, and they needed to respond and tell you how great a guy this is. My problem is that if his family wants to do that and his friends want to do that, I think they should, because that's how they know him. But for a union, systematically to come in here and put pictures of this officer with a black person that seemed to need a lot of help, it just shows me that they don't understand. You will, just like I said, his friends have the right to put out what good guy he has been to them, to testify. The community, if they feel something, whether you agree with it or I agree with it, they had a right. They just saw somebody shot in the back of the head, and they believe it could be avoidable. I want to challenge the union to understand that I have not called him a racist. I have not called him a monster. My fight is not with the officer. My fight is with systemic racism that over-polices black communities, that do not train officer de-escalation skills. And when I saw some of the training, and even jumped in to take a little of the training, even with the taser, throughout the years when I went to the police station, I understood one thing they did. They teach them that these urban areas are war zones. They teach them that these urban areas are high drug trafficking. Luckily, because of my recording career, I once had a chance to live in Cascade. When I came back, Kentwood, I found out, unbeknownst to me, it's more drugs out in the rich neighborhood than the poor neighborhood, I guess because there's more money out there. But it's never called a high drug area. So when the officer says, I fear for my life, you know what? I don't say, he lying. I say, you've been mistrained. You've been well, we live here. You fear for your life, what you think we do? I fear for my life every time. I'm a commissioner, and this is no lie. Every time I see the blue lights come on, and in Christmas, I just go crazy till I realize y'all done brought your Christmas trees out. When I see the blue light, I freeze up. My body takes a whole nother demeanor. And usually they go around me, and I forget I'm the commissioner. First thing come to mind, I'm glad they wouldn't get me. Let me slow down and hope these people are all right. That's how we feel in our community. I want people to also know in the union to know this isn't just about the fact that this officer has come in our community. Another thing we can give Joe Biden credit for, this excessive force law will take away the right to say, I killed you because I fear for my life. Now you have to prove there was no other way. That is what is so important. It also has a federal tracking system. So these officers that do dirt can't just go to the next city. There's no way for us to even know what police chief we got without no tracking. We have to go by what the commissioners say. We have to go by what the city manager says. This tracking system will be able to give us that data. MLK said, to my church brothers and sisters and the pastors that are here, MLK said, we will not remember the words of our enemy, we will remember the silence of our friends. Silence is why the racism exists. Like I said, we're here to be a Christian, to be a believer. I'm gonna quit saying Christian because we got no religious gang banging. I respect everybody that understands that man is not the final word. That there's a higher power. But when we believe there's higher power, we believe that beyond this physical body, there's a spiritual being, that the higher power is colorless, powerful, the creator of the atoms and the neutrons. He's higher than gender. He's not male or female. It's just our lack of a language. We say he, but them. Amen. Thou. He's bigger and beyond all of us. But he made us out of a spiritual form. And when we're talking about that spiritual form, then it's got to be bigger than the two men. Did anybody here know that it's not against the law to get out your car when you see the police? It's not against your law when the police pull you over. Did you know it's not against the law to get out your car? You hear some people say you should have stayed in the car. And that's where they stop. And I know I can't even argue with them. They're going to be there for the rest of their life. They've been taught that when you get out the car, you deserve to die. Then some have at least enough intelligence to know that you can't get killed just for getting out your car, especially when your hands are open and you see you don't have anything. So there's some just a little more intelligent that say, well, he shouldn't have ran. They don't know there's a constitutional law called Texas Garner versus Garner that you cannot shoot a fleeing suspect in the back. So I don't know how they can justify shooting somebody in the back of the head. But at least they say he shouldn't have run. One thing I can agree with is that in our community, I'm working on programs to teach our young people what to do when you're seen by the police. Because see, they have traumatic stress, post-traumatic stress. They're afraid of the police. Running means I'm afraid for my life. It means I'm afraid of something. Shooting somebody in the back of the head, and you got the gun, I don't know how you are the one afraid, but like I said, that's just my opinion. The racism is when City Hall said, we're going to destroy you for your opinion. We're going to take all our endorsements back because of your opinion. We're going to call everybody that used to put money into your campaign and say, do not put money in his campaign because he helped a Congolese family. Let me tell you why I helped that family. They came from Africa. You may not know about the wars in Africa. But the only difference, like I said, we are spiritual people. Some people think in the physical only, so they say, it's worse over there. They cut the lost boy's arms off. That is terrible. Why do they do that? Because they don't want them to grow up to be soldiers. Here in America, it was sad because they came here with hope for a better life. But they didn't know. It's incognito in America. We don't cut your arms off, but the CIA and Oliver North will bring guns and crack and drop it in LA and let us kill ourselves. If you put 100 men in a cell or back of a truck and you don't feed them for 3 weeks and you throw one hamburger in there, do you think there might be a fight? Do you think there might be a little bloodshed? So you come into these zones and you bring drugs. And some of you may be shocked saying, is he making that up? No, this is true. This is true. The Contra-Iran affair, when they sold guns to the gangs in Chicago, they sold guns to the gangs. You see the guns that are in the community today. So they did not understand that before video, we're talking about George Floyd, we're talking about Mike Brown, all of this is after video. So what was going on before the iPhone? If they're watching a man shoot Patrick LYOYA in the back of the head and say, there shouldn't even be a court there. He hasn't been interviewed in 2 months. At first, they didn't want to release his name. They didn't want to show the video. They watched it and they said, this is how life is supposed to be. But why? Only in the black community. You can be mad at me for saying this, but systemic racism does exist. Qualified immunity. I've been asked to be on a national panel for police reform in Washington, D.C. One of the first things I'm going to talk about is qualified immunity. When I talk to them, I'm only going to talk in a political sense because I'm here today with spiritual people. I believe I'm going to talk spiritually. Man makes a law that you got qualified immunity. No matter what you do, we can't charge you. No matter what you say, we can't charge you. No matter what you do. But God said, thou shalt not kill. You can't get qualified immunity from that. And you can't come through neighborhoods in the law of public opinion and think they're going to give you qualified immunity. So you're setting these police officers up for failure. I'm not anti-police. I think some of their biggest fans must be anti-police if you're going to try to justify these actions and continue to send them back into communities which they don't live in, which they never lived in, that they didn't go to school, where they're outnumbered 500 to 1, and think we're going to continue to let you kill us? Do you think we're going to let you continue to police us? We're talking now and y'all want to punish us and destroy us with systemic racism? People have been fired for their opinion about Patrick LYOYA. This is not a game or a joke. Systemic racism has kicked in. I'm going through a political lynching, and I knew what I would face when I did it. I had people in City Hall, are you going to risk your political career? You just did Martin Luther King Street. You're ranking, you did Martin Luther King. But do you know there's a Muhammad Ali, for the young people who don't know, he won the 1960 Olympics gold medal. And when he got back to America, he went someplace to eat. And they wouldn't let his friend eat. So he went to the river and he took that gold medal and he threw it away. When I did Martin Luther King, I got a call from the city commissioners. I went there and I said, I've been working on this 20 years. I presented it. And I said, I want to do this. A lot of commissioners shook their head, it's time. City manager said, I vow to help you do this. The new city manager, Mark Washington, said, I don't know why this hasn't been done. I started getting calls from commissioners. You want some help? I don't need no help. I got the votes, but I think that'll look good. We all do it together. Next thing, when we do the celebration, the mayor, who I ain't seen do one thing on Martin Luther, she showed up. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This has been a hard march for all of us who've been working on Martin Luther King. Hey, Rob, thank you for letting me be a part of this. Sure, Mayor. Y'all want to be part of the street sign, but y'all don't want to be part of the real struggle. Is y'all calling me now? Is y'all calling me now to do Dr. Martin Luther King work? Is y'all calling me now? So like Ali threw away that gold chain. I'm so proud when I see that Dr. Martin Luther King street sign. But like that gold chain, sometimes I want to go just take one down. I know I'll get arrested. I started doing it the other night, taking the Grand River and throw it over there. Because it don't mean a darn thing if we don't do the work. If it don't remind us to do the work, then what good is it? I'm going to go ahead and finish up. But qualified immunity is one thing I would want to get rid of. Reminding people that when I went on the airplane, you know, this thing with this officer shooting this Congolese young man in the back of the head has left a dark cloud on Grand Rapids. Yes. It has brought some division, especially from those who are the strongest police supporters when you read things that they say. Yes. It's like people who believe that this young man shouldn't have been shot, and that's basically what they say. They don't say, we believe he shouldn't have been shot, and anyone else, you're a hater. You're a black people hater. People are on there, the police union called us haters. I don't know if you read it. When they went to uplift this officer, they also put the usual police haters. So they're fanning that. They're lucky I'm not on the city commission because I'll bring them to their knees in the next contract negotiation. I'll bring them to their knees because I believe we need police. But I've been all around the world and I can tell you, that ain't the only form of police we can have. We need to let them know we got options. We got options. We've got to get them in check. We got systemic racism that's going on, and we got to bring changes. We got to address these changes to make sure that no other unarmed civilian is killed here. We need the social equity to make sure that the kids here have some type of hope in their future. We need to make sure there's some true reform. We need City Hall to understand, you don't have to wait to the end of the trial. Oh, it's under investigation. We can't speak about it. This isn't just about the Patrick LYOYA. You have been beating people for years. You have just pulled a gun on a pregnant woman and been on TV saying, no, we was pointing at the boyfriend behind her. You just had a gun misfire that should have never been pulled off with an officer's hand on the trigger. You can reform right now. You can reform right now. There are things that you can do right now. Multiple police officers in the car, more training to become a police officer. It takes less time to go through training to be a police officer than it does to be a barber. We can put social workers within the police department, psychologists, not only for them to sometimes ride along and assess a situation, but I know police officers. They think we hate them just because we say they need psychological evaluation every 6 months. Like she said, like Ruth said, you know, when somebody tells her they fear for their life, do you know what they go into? Well, wouldn't that make you think you would need some psychological evaluation? But you're only coming into the community you call a high drug area, high crime, but I call it my home. So either you're crazy or I'm crazy. Something wrong with you or something wrong with me. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? And I'm just playing with my language because I'm talking to the cops in the street language they can understand. Mental issues are not that word I said. My mother, at 12 years old, my mother entered Pine Rest for paranoid schizophrenia and some other things. So we would be called all these names in school. And then at about 20 years old, 19 or 20, I was beginning to question my sanity because I heard so many people, this is gonna happen to you. So I went to, up here, the Kent Health Department. Next door was something called Kent Community Hospital or something. I remember my mom being in there a lot, going there with me when I was little. So I went there to find out if this was hereditary or something had happened to my mother, because all of a sudden it went from the beautiful, I love you, I'm picking you up from school, to who are you? And you're a threat to me. It became a scary situation. But because of the HIPAA laws, even that being my blood mother, I was never ever able to find out if it was hereditary or not. So that's one of the reasons, you know, I felt it was a blessing with some of the people at Kent County who may have knew my story behind the scene that led me, I'm telling you, they let me motion the mental health court. And just some of the things I mentioned when I saw a young man with autism, always wanted to drive a car. So he was 19 years old, he's about this tall, he never drove a car, and somebody left the keys in the car. And he got in the car, he drove, he didn't get fired off, he just crashed. But that was the happiest 8 seconds of his life. His mother tried to explain to the police. They arrested him. They put him in jail. And I went to court, and he was not able to put a complete sentence together. He was not able to put 2 words together as the judge asked him question after question. That's why I fight so much for social justice. I'm like, Judge, I know you know better, but are your hands so tied by the law, the policy? All of these things they say we have to trust. I'm like, yes, Mrs. Mayor, trust the policy, the process, and shut up until it's done. Well, if we had did that, we'd still be in slavery. Wasn't it a law that we was 3/5 of human beings? Didn't Dred Scott lose his case when he ran away from his master to be free in a free state? Didn't the process and the law, didn't somebody have to work to change it? I'm not here to tell people that we should resort to anarchy. I'm not here to tell people that we should not follow laws, because we should. But like Dr. Martin Luther King said, we have to protest laws that go against the laws of humanity and our Lord. And that's what I'm challenging all of our pastors to do. I'm challenging everybody. Like he said, free. But what are we going to be free from? One day we'll all be free, right? But what are we going to be free from? We need to be free from ignorance. We need to be free from injustice. We need to be free from gender bias, sexual preference bias. We need to make sure we get LGBTQ. They are fighting to keep it out of the Larson-Elliott Act. I'm fighting to get it put in there. I'm fighting to get it put in there. And I know I'm talking to people, and sometimes the churches are the main one that got politicians scared. What would the church think? That everybody has rights that need to be honored. And there's nothing in my Bible that says we have the right to dishonor people's the rights that they have. We have to be free of racism. A racist can only do so much. As bad as it is, we just saw a racist kill 10 people. He would have killed more if he could have. He was equipped to kill more. But somehow God stopped him. He had enough bullets to kill hundreds. He had enough bullets to kill 50 within a minute. And it's bad. But you see, we can only go so far with the racists. Handcuff them, put him in jail, keep him there for the rest of his life. If he doesn't live somewhere where they have the death penalty, I don't support the death penalty, and I don't wish death on no man. I believe that God is the final judge and jury. So I do not support the death penalty. But the racist was created by systemic racism. He was created by those that allowed this type of teaching to go on. He was created here in America. And after him, there'll be another one. And another one, because they say we don't want critical racism taught in the schools. It's not taught in the schools, it's taught in college. So what are they talking about? They don't want you to know America's dark history. And I will tell you this. If you don't know your history, we will repeat it. We will repeat it. The people die for the lack of a vision. And we have to give these young people a better vision. We have young people in the urban area, many going on to college, many doing magnificent things, but we have a small percentage that is exploited for some of the behavior they do. So we have young people killing each other. We have white people, young men driving hundreds of miles, like he said, to kill black people. We have police killing black people, and worse, thinking that I'm just gonna go home and go on vacation and get a paid leave from the city. They ain't thinking that's what's happening. That is what's happening. What is our vision? What is our vision? We need you to stand up and help bring these police departments up to the new century. We need to bring them into the new millennium, that this is not 1965 and it's showing 1865. We have to get rid of this quantified immunity. I'm going to end it like this. I'm going to go back to something that Nick talked about. Jesus. And for those of you who don't believe in Jesus, like I always say when I'm in the hood, there's a lot of us Christian young men get on the street corner, we testify about Jesus. And some people, I don't believe it. I say, well, do you believe it's the greatest story ever told? If you don't believe in him, do you believe that? Yeah, that's true. Well, let's tell you a little part of that story. I'm going to tell y'all a little part of it. When Jesus, one thing I'm going to go back to what he said, what can we do with 40 people? Some of my favorite parts of the Bible is when it's just Jesus and the 12. Some of the miracles that happen Some of the things he talked about when it just the 12 was the most powerful part of the Bible. But Jesus told Peter, you'll deny me 3 times before the rooster crow. When Peter cut off a policeman's ear, people don't really know the people that came to get Jesus, and they were just following their ill instructions that they were given. The people who sentenced Jesus didn't even want to sentence him. But there's so many people say we got to do it. But when Peter cut off his ear, Jesus put it back on. So I can tell you this, no matter what we go through, we don't have forgiveness in the end somewhere. And that's not to let anyone off the hook or not be accountable, but it's only going to hurt us by holding hate. But Jesus said, you'll deny me 3 times before the roosters crow. So we pick up where Nick left off and we say, you know, I used to sing that song, when the saints come marching in, I want to be in the number. I'm sure a lot of you do. But they didn't say when the saints come strolling in a Bentley. They didn't say when the saints come moonwalking with flashing lights. They said when they come marching. So when you come marching, there's something else going on. And when we look at these final days, I feel like I'm marching when I walk in City Hall and there's people that used to speak to me. But when I stood up for this Congolese family, helped them, I didn't know no better. I went to work. How you doing? Okay, don't know what's wrong with it. How you doing? Wait a minute. Out of all these hundreds of people in this building, and there's about 30 that I consider associates, and there's about 4 I consider good friends. I'm down to 1 friend and 2 associates. Because they call me anti-police. At first it hurt my heart. Then I start seeing everybody else getting put up on committees and stuff I would be on usually with the mayor. Getting no call. People who ain't never been on no committee. Not even really elected politicians. But if I don't like Robert, your enemies like the people that don't like you. So my shoulders got down a little bit. Then I read my Bible. I got to march. But when we see Jesus carrying that cross, what's a better saint than Jesus? Marching to that cross to save all of us, for the believers. To save all of us, he's marching with that cross. How many people watch him march with that cross and then start singing, I want to be in the number? It wasn't just Peter denying him 3 times. All those people he helped was sitting there watching him carry that cross. But like I said, we are in the spiritual age. This ain't about the physical. We all cry and we're all shocked because it hurts to see that they put nails in our Savior's hand. He even asked his Father, why art thou forsaken me? God couldn't even take it. Turned his back and it was an eclipse. But he turned right back around and never turned his back on this world again. But that's his son. And the worst physical things were done, but you got to understand, let's go past the body of Christ. Because when we talk about the body of Christ, you know we're not talking about the body like our body. We're talking about the Prince of Peace. We're talking about the principles for which he stands. We're talking about the righteousness. We're talking about the love that he bestowed even upon his enemies. Told them as they nailed nails in them. And to my neighborhood, I had to tell them, we just watched the police shoot a man in the head. You know who told me that he was shot from behind? Didn't tell me he was shot in the head. The 12-year-old. Y'all don't know our neighborhood. Y'all watch that video and you think because everything looked quiet like that, nobody saw that. Now people from our neighborhood know one thing. Somebody's watching. Curtains are like this. People are watching. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to get in trouble. When I went over there, a 12-year-old told me that. So I have to watch. At that time, I hadn't seen the video. I knew he was shot from behind the first day. But when you see the video, I have to watch that. And I have to go in the hood and I have to tell them, For y'all believe in Jesus, y'all know this story. And for y'all who don't, who believe it's the greatest story, let me tell you something. They were nailing nails in his hand. They left him hanging there by nails. They cut down his ribs. They did every painful thing, and he said, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. I forgive City Hall, because they know not what they do. I forgive the police, because they know not what they do. I forgive my community sometimes when we do things to each other that we shouldn't do. I forgive them for they know not what they do. We cannot afford, though, to turn our back on Jesus at this time, God. And for those who don't believe in Jesus, it's great that we're talking about the spiritual, because maybe you believe in righteousness. Maybe you believe in truth. Maybe this is the time for us to stand up. It's just as you heard me say, I forgive some people that right now hate me. They're trying to destroy me. But I realize that I have to forgive them. And I'll tell you this, I hold back tears. There's some bad things going to happen to me. They've already begun. And they're going to get worse. Because I can't quit. I can't turn my back on transparency. I can't turn my back on truth. I can't turn my back on my community. And I'm not here to say that my opinion is right, because I'm not God. I'm not here to say my opinion is law. But I got to show them young men. See, why I rode the streets is because when my daddy left, I wanted to be a man. And all the leaders I saw in City Hall, they wasn't no man. They didn't stand up for us. And we talked about them like dogs. Nobody stood up for us. When crack came out, I was on Highland. The police wanted to search us for crack rocks. They told us pull our pants down. And if you don't believe me, you ask anybody who grew up on Lafayette and Highland. We pulled our pants down. You think no one could even make this up. Some people they told to wiggle. Because if you wiggle and you had some crack, it would fall out. One day they pulled us over. They told us to lift our shirts up. You know, this time no one told us to pull our pants down, but there was the time that they had us actually pull our pants down. We was too young to know. We just sitting like this. Then I thought about it. I started getting an attitude. Next time, it would just pull up your shirt this time. I ain't pulling up nothing. I got a beat down. I remember one day going to court and they had beat me out my clothes. And the judge was mad that I came into his court with sand, dust in my hair and no shirt on. You gonna come in my court like this? And I said, Your Honor, shut up! Your Honor, no. One more word and it's going to be contempt of court. So I had to shut up and be quiet while I got sentenced. And couldn't tell them, no disrespect, Your Honor. They beat me. They pulled my shirt over my head and I couldn't see. And they just hit me and whooped on me. They kicked me, they threw me in the dirt. And this was over traffic. And like Patrick, you know, they say he didn't have a license. I didn't have a license that day. I didn't have a license. So I went to jail for not having a license. But I took a terrible beating. And when I came out, didn't want no job, didn't want to do right. Wanted to run the streets, do crime. I was so antisocial, anti-system. And then one day at the top of all of it, I was rapping in New York, making money rapping, but doing other things I shouldn't. God just hit me with a vision. You're gonna die. All that you're doing, you're gonna die right here in New York. You're going to die. And when God talks to you, it's different just a word. My inside felt it. I felt fear, and I'm one of the most fearless people you would know, but everything shook and came out of me. And I started asking, how did I get here? I'm rapping, and they're beginning to tell me I gotta switch my rap and start talking about killing people, and I'm on Epic Records. And just when I finished writing one of my first raps that I didn't want to write, that the company called a masterpiece, full of shooting and killing, I had to say I quit. I quit. I'm walking away. Came back to Grand Rapids, Michigan, got on the radio, started doing some community things, started talking to young people about changing their life. And I felt you young people need to have an example of someone who came out the streets like you, grew up in and out of the juveniles, that went to jail, that made some silly mistakes, used to be your hero, rapping about this and rapping about that. I just want to show you that we can be good men, and that doesn't mean we have to be weak. That doesn't mean that we have to be afraid of this system, that we can stand up for you. I'm looking at that shirt of Patrick LYOYA. That young man is dead. But Patrick LYOYA, I'm standing up for you. I'm saying I made some mistakes too. I said I didn't always do right. But I'm thankful to God, my community, and I'm thankful to the old school police. The ones that I used to fight with, I grew up and we would sit down and talk. I talk about things they shouldn't have done, they talk about things I shouldn't have done. And could you believe I would one day have to grow up after all I went through with the GRPD back then and thank them for not killing me? There were times where they beat me up, I fought back. They get 50 licks, if I get 2, I was a hero in my neighborhood. Robert, you hit him twice. But I got beat up. They didn't kill me. And I'm looking at a young man that I didn't see throw one punch. I didn't see him fight back. And he's got a bullet in his head. So now I gotta say, thank God that I didn't get killed. Yeah, I'm gonna ride for him. They told me to see how he got 2 felonies. How you gonna give up your career for him? I said, I got friends that got 6 felonies. I got friends in prison doing years in football numbers. That's a human being. That's a human being. That is not an animal, and I don't even like to have to say that's not an animal, because even an animal don't deserve that behavior. I wouldn't do that to anything that God has created and put life in. I just wouldn't do that. But I'm not here to keep talking to you all night. I'm here to motivate you that there's a lot of people, you heard a lot of speakers here today, that's working hard to make sure we have justice. And when we say justice, some people think justice means somebody else has to be fried, somebody else has to be hurt, somebody that did something got to be totally punished. That should be in the hands of a jury and God. If it made it to court so that everybody could just know what's going on, I just believe if it don't even go to court, why wouldn't a police officer just stroll in here tomorrow and do that? When you say we're not even going to charge you, you're saying that this doesn't even add up. This life doesn't even add up to anything that's worth even having a court date. Having a conversation. Laurie, nice to meet you. I see you at a lot of events. She is an activist. So that is my challenge to the believers. Will you talk to people? You who are pastors, will you tell your congregation that no matter what you feel about this, you don't have to agree with us. We can't change your mind. But the greatest sin would be for you to destroy us in our community and our young leaders. And teach our kids that they don't have no adults that have the right to stand up for them. You're going to destroy and kill us too? You're going to kill this young man? And then you're going to attack us for asking you why? You're gonna attack us for saying show the video? You're gonna attack us for asking for the officer's name? You're gonna attack us for asking you why you haven't interviewed him in 40 days? You're gonna ask us why are you still paying a city employee that hasn't even handed in a police report that we've been able to see on why he just killed a young black man? I'm not gonna retire, I'm not gonna quit. Because even if I die for what I believe, if I get took out in a political lynching for what I believe, it's gonna be done as a man. I'm gonna show these young men out here. You can be a man of God and still be the man that these young men, what they consider manhood. And a lot of people think I'm over talking when I say the manhood. But that is the part of our lostness in the community. When you don't have a righteous man to stand up and show you what a man is, there were bad men in our neighborhood that preyed on us for that. I show you how to be a man, sell these drugs, you'll have your own money. You know, there are people that preyed on us. They were too young, they don't want to go out and sell drugs. They know they go to jail, they know we just go to juvie and get right out. They prey upon that. And I'm telling you, the strongest man that I ever knew, I never got a chance to meet him, but for the believers, it was Jesus. Ain't nothing soft about Jesus. He knew what was coming. He had to stand there and go through it. I need you, we cannot turn our back on righteousness. Open your mouth. Testify. We're afraid to testify to the kids in the store. What if somebody had testified to this 18-year-old before he shot these 19 kids? There's too many Christians, I know, because I've been to Texas. There's too many Christians in Texas for these kids to keep slipping through the cracks. There's too many evangelistics. There's too many Quakers. There's too many Mormons. There's too many Muslims. There's too many people that believe in a higher power and know how valuable life is for us to continue to let these kids slip through the crack without being testified. I just challenge you to testify, and even if it's beyond, this shooting brought us together. But even if you say this shooting, it doesn't motivate me, it's not nothing I want to discuss, I want you to look at the state of the world. This shooting is a part of the state of the world that we're in, and it's getting chaotic. It's in Revelation that we would be in the last days, so it's not nothing we didn't expect. But what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Are we going to bring some more people into the fold of righteousness? I'm going to say, if you're a believer and you know it, clap your hands. If you're a believer and you know it, clap your hands. If you're a believer and you know it, and your faith will surely show it, clap your hands. I want you to walk with faith, walk with strength, and understand, even though I came here today to talk to you, I kind of forgot what this was about. Vote for common good, because I do want everybody to vote. It's very important, but more important, I want you to cherish your soul, cherish what you believe in, stand up for it, understand if you're looking for a purpose in life, there's no better purpose than to testify. And if you want to go and dwell in the house of the Lord forever, or whatever you believe is spiritually heaven to you, speak up and take somebody with you. Thank you, Grand Rapids.
I'm going to close us out with a song. And, you know, when you start speaking up, a lot of times it costs you something. And this is a song I wrote, and believe it or not, Fox News picked it up, not in a good way, and got got death threats and arson threats on our church and all sorts of crazy things. But this is a song about how I grew up in the evangelical church. And I think my problem was I believed everything that we were talking about. So that's what this song is about. It's called Hymn for the 81%. I grew up in your church, Sunday morning and evening service, knelt in tears at the foot of the rugged cross. Taught me every life is sacred, feed the hungry and clothe the naked. I learned from you the highest law is love. And I believed you when you said that I should trust the words in red that guide my steps through a wicked world. I assumed you'd do the same, so imagine my dismay when I watched you lead the sheep straight to the wolves. You said to love the lost, I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, so I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Oh, they started putting kids in cages, ripping mothers from their babies, and I look to you to speak on their behalf. Oh, but all I heard was silence, or worse, you justified it, singing glory, hallelujah, raise the flag. See, your fear had turned to hatred, but you baptized it with language torn from the pages of the good book. You weaponized religion, and you wonder why I'm leaving to find Jesus on the wrong side of your walls. And you said to love the lost, well, I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, that's why I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Come home, come home. You're better than this. Oh, you're better than this. Come home, come home. You're better than this. Oh, you taught me better than this. Come home, come home. Oh. Maybe I was too naive, or I just didn't want to see that there's always been a little poison in the well. 'Cause we sit on stolen lands, nation built by stolen hands, and we use the Bible to justify it all. Yeah, from slavery and segregation to mass incarceration. This is who we are, but not who we have to be. There's a lot of work to do to pull up the evil by the roots, but repentance has to come before there's peace. You said to love the lost, trying to love you now. You said to speak the truth, that's why I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice rule down. May love overcome and justice rule down. May love overcome and justice rule down. May love overcome and justice roll down. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for doing what you do to make the world a better place. Stick around and hang out with us, connect with people, make some new friends. Have a great night.